So by the time you've listened to this, the Oscars have come and gone.
They're out. We got winners. We have losers. We have viewers.
Indeed. What you are listening to right now is a time capsule. This is a time before we knew what won Best Picture.
Yeah.
We are recording this very early.
We're recording this early because James, that's me, is going to be out of town for our normal recording of episode 88. Mm-hmm. So here we are recording this content now.
In order for us to celebrate the Oscars coming out, we are going to be talking about every Best Picture winner that has come and gone. Now, obviously, James and I have reviewed a good chunk of these. James, have you seen Parasite?
I haven't seen Parasite yet.
Okay. All right, fair enough. Let's see.
Although by the time this episode airs, maybe you have.
Okay, that's fair. All right, let's see. You've seen Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though, right?
Not seen Once Upon a Time.
Okay, that's all right.
I'll get around to it.
That's all right. Yeah, The Irishman.
The Irishman is on my watch list. I'll get around to it.
It's 3.5 hours.
It's fine.
But you've seen Ford versus Ferrari, right?
I haven't seen Ford versus Ferrari.
For what it's worth, I haven't seen Ford versus Ferrari either. Let's see. Well, we've already talked about Joker.
We have.
I guess.
Hey, I did one.
Let's see. We also have Little Women came out. I don't suppose you've seen that.
I don't know why I paused that long.
It's going to be in the title of the episode, James. You don't have to play coy.
Yes, I've seen Little Women.
Well, there you go.
There we go.
Let's talk about Little Women.
You can't haul your stuff without a trailer hitch. Trailer hitch.
Releases by the movie trailers. We're trailer hits. This movie might totally suck, but the whiskey sure is going down fine. Yeah, we're trailer hits.
So yes, either congratulations or my condolences to Little Women for winning or not winning Best Picture. But to be honest, our condolences, because 1917 is probably a winner. Man, are we gonna have egg on our past faces when this comes out and it's not 1917.
I'm not taking a stance one way or the other because I'm the diplomatic one. Hi, I'm Kevin.
Hi, I'm James, and I'm the verbal one.
The instigator, I guess.
I like that better. That makes more sense than verbal.
So what do you get when you get an instigator and a pragmatic person? You get trailer hits. This is a podcast where we rate and review movie trailers. We rate them on a scale of need to see more, or never need to see. If James and I both like a trailer, we give it a need to see rating. Then we go see the movie. Report back to you guys in a segment called Trailer in the Rear View, in which we review the trailer in retrospect and talk about the movie writ large. Speaking of, we're going to be doing that.
And by this time, 2021, we will have made our way through the Best Picture nominees of this year.
That's a bold statement. I had no plans to see The Two Popes, even though it's on Netflix, and I can watch it right now.
Okay, well, look, if I see everything else on this category, except Ford versus Ferrari, you and I have to watch Ford versus Ferrari to complete it, to finish the...
At that point, it's sunk cost fallacy.
You have to, right?
Yeah. I'm at 8. I may as well hit 9.
Yeah. It's an empty threat, Kevin, because I'll never get around to everything. But we did get around to Little Women, didn't we?
We absolutely did. Yeah. This was a trailer that we gave double need to sees to.
Uh-huh.
And now let's take a look at that trailer. Let's see how it holds up.
This is Meg, Amy, Beth, and Joe.
I intend to make my own way in the world.
No one makes their own way, least of all a woman. You'll need to marry well.
But you are not married, aren't you?
Well, that's because I'm rich.
I really liked this trailer, though. I mean, this is kind of something that I'm a sap for. It's a need to see it for me.
This is absolutely a need to see for me as well, too. Yes, absolutely. All right, get out your magnifying glasses because these are some Little Women, and this is the Little Women trailer. James, how do you think this trailer did in retrospect?
Speaking as someone who has never seen any adaptation of Little Women, nor have I ever read the book, I'm very, very cleanly unfamiliar with the story.
Same here.
Completely, you
Yep,
were. Oh
yep,
wow,
completely
okay, great.
unfamiliar.
Well, this will be interesting. I would say yes. I would say yes, but not like aces. You know, like 1917. We both agreed like the marketing in the trailer was perfectly selling that movie
Yeah.
for what it could be.
Yeah.
All right.
Please tune in to our 1917 episode for us to talk about that
Hey,
further.
there is another Best Picture one we talked about other than the Joker.
Shrew.
Yeah. So this one, I would say yes, but there is an aspect of the film, like 1917, that the trailer doesn't cover.
Yeah.
I don't think that's quite a hindrance, but it also was a tiny bit jarring when I got into the movie.
And you're talking about the splits, the timeline.
The split timelines.
Yeah.
And how it's not completely linear
Correct.
from beginning to end.
Again, I'm in the same boat as you. I'm not familiar with the source material. Or
It's
the
linear.
other
I looked this up
but
afterwards.
Yeah, I was just about to say that this is something that's unique to this adaptation.
Absolutely. And for a story that's been told countless times in different mediums, it's pretty crazy that this one decided to break the mold and do it in this kind of way.
Yeah.
Not present in the marketing at all.
Nope.
And that's okay. That's why it gets a yes. It sold the film properly, but not like amazingly.
Sure. And I'm not necessarily put off, nor did I necessarily want, in retrospect, for this trailer to cover the multiple timelines. Again, I was going into this movie blind to what was going to happen in it.
Me too. Yeah.
And so I was just kind of taking the split timeline thing as like, oh, this is a really interesting way to frame this story. This is like the 10th time that this has happened, but this feels very innovative. That's really cool. And yeah, same thing. Then I learned after the fact, oh fuck, Greta Gerwig was just the one that willed that into existence. That's pretty neat.
I mean, I've actually, in a sort of reverse way, when I was watching it, I almost could tell that the source material
Didn't do that?
isn't this.
Interesting.
Look, I wasn't able to 100% know that, but it was an inkling I had. While watching it, I was just kind of like, I have a feeling this is probably linear in the book.
Yeah, because split timelines thing, I don't know how commonly used that was.
Probably never.
Yeah.
And so it was very awesome to read after the fact that, no, this was all Greta Gerwig all the way. That was really fascinating and interesting.
I am fine with the split timelines not being introduced in the trailer, because I think for people who are fans of Little Women or have seen multiple adaptations or read the book, then this comes as a surprise
It's a
to
nice,
you.
it's a curveball for them.
All of a sudden you're like, oh my god, no, they're doing something different. With this story. And bear in mind, I could see it going either way, because I could see someone who has seen the other 4 movies. Maybe you watched this trailer and thought to yourself, man, fucking, why do I need a 5th? Like, I like Greta Gerwig, but come on.
Yeah.
Maybe you didn't need to know this does a nonlinear approach in order for you to be like, oh, I'm interested in this now.
Right.
I just personally didn't need that. And I think the best thing the movie could have sold me on was the hangout nature of this film. I think that's an adjective that gets thrown around a lot in movies now, where it's like, this is just a hangout movie.
I've never heard that before.
I think
I get what you.
Yeah.
Sorry, you don't have to explain it. The nice thing about it is it's pretty self-explanatory. But
you see, James, characters hang out, and it feels like nothing is happening, but really, what you're watching is just camaraderie. Anyway.
But
now that's been explained,
well, I've never heard the term before.
Let me give you 4 examples. No,
lay it on me, buddy.
No, I'm not. But for the most part, you're just seeing these sisters interact with each other and grow up, and then eventually grow apart, and then to a degree start to come back together again. And that's something you got to get on board with, or boy, is this movie not going to be your jam.
Yeah.
And I feel like this trailer does a really good job of selling the lightheartedness of the movie itself. We mostly just established Jo in the trailer itself.
Oh,
it's like
she's our main character. She's our point of view character.
Yeah, we get how headstrong she is in the trailer. We don't get, say, Amy being Amy in the trailer. We don't get Beth largely being forgotten until you can't forget her.
Well, she is relatively forgotten in the trailers, though, too. Like, it's a Jo show, for sure, all the trailers. But even Emma Watson, I forget her character's name, and Amy, they all get moments.
Yeah.
But Beth gets nothing. Correct. It's just like, here's the fourth sister, Beth. Yes. She'll make it through. Wink.
You see her play piano, but she isn't. It's like the framing of it is you're looking at her back. Have you not seen the movie? You'd probably be like, oh, just someone's playing the piano.
Could be anyone playing. Yeah, sure.
Totally. But at the same time, no, I was not put off by not putting in the split timeline thing.
I wouldn't say I'm put off by it. I thought it was interesting that they didn't include it, and that's why I still give it a yes. It sold the film properly, but with just like a caveat of, I thought it was interesting that they left that part out.
What this trailer does instead is it's like we're going to give you the hangout nature, but the arc in this is going to kind of be the thematic arc. We're going to see Joe turning down Timothy Chalamet.
Laurie, right?
Laurie is his character's name.
Yeah.
That's correct, yes.
They only say it like a billion times.
You even see it written on a letter. Yes. And then that's when we get her impassioned speech about, like, I think women are more than,
in the trailer.
Yes,
yeah, how the trailer
definitely
is structured, for sure.
Yes.
And I remember when we talked about the trailer, I was like, I like this. I mean, it's an important message, but also it felt a little heavy-handed in the context of the trailer. And I will tell you, we're not in spoilers yet, but that moment in the movie is so much better than it was in the trailer. It's so much more complex. There's so many more layers to it. Saoirse Ronan's speech is just incredible.
Yeah, I will echo, dude. I'll echo it with my chest. Yeah, because that was like my only note about the trailer when we watched it last time was like, hey, what's on your nose? Oh, it's your themes.
Yeah,
but seeing the movie, no, I think it earns all of those moments. And in retrospect, by the way, last thing I'll shout out with the trailer is it still kind of kept the structure of the movie, even though I wasn't aware like this would be the structure of the movie, by having the guy who Joe is trying to sell the story of Little Women to bookend the trailer ended up being kind of a neat little Easter egg, having seen the movie.
It was a nice way.
It's staying true to the framing device of the film.
Yeah, you bookended the movie the same way you bookended the trailer. I thought that was nice.
So yeah, overall, I definitely think that this does a good job. It leaves room for surprises, whether that be its structure or Bob Odenkirk. But either way,
it was a surprise and a half. Delightful, welcome one, but it was a surprise nonetheless. Spoiler: Bob Odenkirk is their dad.
Well, as long as we're getting into those little surprises, I think it's time we get into the film itself.
Let's do it, man. Spoilers ahoy!
Yes, Beth is dead.
Beth
now that we've gotten that out of the way, yeah, man, let's get into it. Okay. What did you think of the actual movie? Yeah.
I came out of this absolutely loving it. I saw it with Jenny, Bad Movie Correspondent Jenny. It was just so charming and sad at times and so funny at times too, and also wildly creative and unique in the way it's telling the story and it's unfolding. In specifics, there are certain things that either don't work for me or I'm not sure about.
Yeah.
And we'll dive into those specifics later, but I was very satisfied with it. So how did you feel in general overall?
I walked out of the movie and it felt like I had just gotten a hug.
It was so nice, right?
It's just
what do people? What's the TV show people say about the Great British Bake Off?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
It's just pleasant. It's nice. I'm like, that's how I felt about it.
Going off of the Great British Bake Off, it doesn't feel like comfort food. It does definitely feel like a really substantive movie, and it gives me really interesting characters to follow. But it's just so goddamn pleasant.
It's so pleasant,
and because it does. It takes the time to just let our characters grow up.
And now, before I forget, I thought you made a really interesting point beforehand that I never thought about. Because it's not linear, I never really made the connection that the flow of the sisters' relationship went from super, super tight to estranged a little bit. then back to being connected again. I didn't view the movie that way. And I think it's because of the intercutting nature of it. You're always, always, always about to or in a scene where the sisters are all together and happy. Mm-hmm. I never got that arc of together, apart, together again, that a linear telling would have told. And I'm not saying I would have preferred that. I just find it interesting that this maybe loses that a little bit, and you clearly got it anyway. I didn't get that. I guess it just wasn't on my mind.
And see, what I really liked about the nonlinear aspect in that regard, because you're correct, you're absolutely correct. Even when you are at the party where Amy marches up super happy and is like, we're going to France. And
the wedding?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe is like, oh my God, this is rad. When are we going? And then Amy goes, the aunt is just taking me.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah.
And then it's real quiet and real uncomfortable. And like that is clearly a moment where these two start to drift apart.
But not just those two, like all of them, because Emma Watson, who just got married, is about to go off with her husband and
she's
start their
off,
life.
And then Beth, everyone forgets about.
Because she stays home.
Yes.
And then
Joe's going to...
Joe goes to New York. Yes. So it never landed on me that there was this arc.
Yeah.
There was this linear arc.
And
I think a second viewing I would have got that.
Sure. But what I like about this structure is even when we see them apart, you get them together simultaneously. So it's like their connection with each other is so strong where even when they're apart, all of their memories together and everything they've been through is just a part of all four of them.
And that's why I think I will love this even more on a second viewing. Mm-hmm. Now with that in my mind and other things in my mind, I think it's just so good. I want to see other adaptations now of this. Sure. I wouldn't mind reading the book on my own. I really enjoyed it a lot.
I was really excited to see this because I was also a huge fan of Lady Bird, which Greta Gerwig also wrote and directed.
Which I still haven't seen yet, but I just know I'm going to love it.
Because now I've kind of noticed this with both films, is Greta Gerwig is really good at giving me a teenage character that's growing up in the sense that her characters, whether that be Lady Bird or whether that be Joe, at times are total dicks. There are points where it's like you are not being a good person
that's
right
part
now.
Of,
you're not.
That's part of being an adolescent.
And that's the thing. When you're growing up, you will act out in certain ways that are completely unhealthy or in ways that hurt the people around you, or you will say or do terrible things. And in this movie, you get a lot of that with Amy as well. Greta Gerwig understands that. I don't think she's ever really judging. Like, I don't ever feel like I'm meant to think, oh, Joe's in the right here, Amy's in the wrong. Amy's in the right here, Joe's in the wrong.
Well, no, it's a more complex situation.
It's a far more complex situation.
And I think the one you're specifically talking about is when Amy burns her novel.
Yeah.
And it's like, in the moment of Amy burning her novel, you're just like, wow, what a horrible, horrible sister Amy is being right now. But then, like, in retrospect, you have to go, man, how much of a bitch was Joe being to Amy? Like,
sure,
leaving for that party. She was just like, oh my God, little sister, just shut the fuck up and leave us alone. You're not invited.
Yeah.
Like, she was being super rude.
Well, yeah, and it harkens into the part about Amy that she is most insecure about, is, like, she's the youngest. And
the second, isn't Beth younger than her?
I thought Amy was the youngest.
It's a little hard to tell because they're all like 25,
true,
25
true.
or 30.
Very true.
Yeah.
But either way, because you get that line where it's like, I've always been in my sister's shadow. She's like always kind of like second or tertiary. So being kicked from the invite to the party completely just fucking rips her heart in half.
Yes. It is complex, and that's why it works so well, because anyone who's had a sibling, I think, can relate to that. Like, I'm very close with my brother, but I have had moments in our adolescence where it's just like, we should not be living under the same roof for this week, maybe.
Yeah.
Like you said, I think Greta Gerwig just
she takes these characters, she gives them these complex emotions, but then she kind of puts her characters through the ringer. And they
all of them,
and then
really.
they all kind of understand.
Except Beth. Sorry.
Poor Beth. Yeah, well,
I mean, she gets put through the ringer in other ways, but she never does anything wrong.
Yeah, a disease. That's what she gets put through, is a disease that she knows she's not going to make it out of.
Twice.
Yeah. Which, by the way, if we're talking about the nonlinear structure, that I think is one of the strongest,
best
most
reveal.
Impactful moments.
Yeah.
Is we get Beth coming out of her first disease, and it's done so well with Joe coming down those stairs, and she sees Beth, and she's healthy, and she's happy, and they have that beautiful Christmas breakfast together. And then we get to the present, and she walks down those stairs again, and it's just her mom, and her mom starts sobbing. It's really impactful.
Yeah, it's really good. It's excellent imagery, and it worked especially well in this nonlinear type of storytelling.
Definitely. Yeah, like the impact was ratcheted up to 10.
Yeah.
And by the way, I will just say... I never really felt like I was getting lost within that nonlinear.
Okay,
because
it's not I'm glad you brought this back.
It's not very big on saying you're in the past.
No. There's one Chiron.
Yeah.
And a Chiron is just words that come up on screen that just say 7 years later or 7 years earlier. Because it starts in quote unquote present day. We have some scenes, then it's 7 years earlier. Mm-hmm. So that's the only Chiron we get. So that set the tone for, okay, we're going to be doing this back and forth thing. The beginning of the movie, I confess that it was a little jarring at the beginning. Not the whole movie.
Sure.
I wasn't like scratching my head. It took me a little longer than I think it was meant to realize, oh crap, we're in modern day now. And then eventually I caught on to the signs.
The color palette is different in the beginning, when we go to the present, there's kind of like a bluish filter to everything.
Yeah, it's grimier. It's cooler. It's cooler.
Cooler, I think, is the word for it. Yeah. Whereas when we're in the past, all of a sudden, everything is exceptionally bright and
yellowy,
2-degree rose tinted, like
the
view of her childhood.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, that was enough for me to be okay, I'm here.
In the future, because it's hard. In the future, you're not entirely sure of where these sisters are. Mm-hmm. They could be anywhere in the world. You don't know. In the book, you know they've all split up already.
Yeah,
you know where all of them are. In the movie, you don't. So when they kept going back, it was a little hard for me to understand the spatial continuity of where all the sisters were. And I had to keep reminding myself, like, oh, that's right. Oh, Amy's in France. Okay. Emma Watson is with her husband. Joe's in New York right now. Okay, now she's back in Massachusetts. So that took a little bit to get my bearings of where all the sisters were in that timeline compared to... oh, the flashbacks. So they're always all together.
Yeah.
And then the thing that helps immensely is when Joe cuts her hair. Sure. Really helped me go, okay, haircut, I'm in the past. Got it. Cool, thank you. Maybe she should have cut her hair sooner to help James out a bit. Not for the story, obviously. So I didn't have a problem with it. I think I was a bit slower to catch on. Now, if you don't mind, I'd like to start talking about more specific things. Like, was there anything in this movie that didn't work for you?
So I'll say what kind of pulled me out a little bit, but then kind of bring it back at the end of, I can understand this argument, though.
Okay.
So the guy who Joe meets in her boarding house.
The doctor.
Who rips her work apart, and then she, yells at him. And then she gets the letter saying, you should come home. And then she leaves. And that's kind of it.
And then we don't see him again until almost the end of the movie.
Yeah, it takes like an hour, hour 15. Almost everyone in this movie has a shitload of depth. Even Meryl Streep's character. I get the impression that the aunt envies Joe. Like, she kind of wants that life.
Yeah.
She wanted to be able to go and do her own thing, to write, to explore, and like figure out who she was. But she kind of had to conform to this idea of, I go to France, I drink this kind of tea, I'm rude to the help, and that is what my life is going to be.
Yeah.
And then she sees someone completely flying in the face of it. Like, there's so much depth with even a character like that. There's so much depth with Chris Cooper's character. Now, that professor, they don't really build that much, especially with how their relationship breaks off. It really took me by surprise that the professor would be so taken by Joe to be like, I'm going to go try and find her. Like, that felt way more hollow to me than every single other thing in this movie. I remember that taking me out of the movie because I'm like, this is not nearly as interesting to me as everything else that's happening.
I think that's fair, and I think if this intercutting of timelines does a disservice to anything, and I think it's okay because overall it's interesting, it does a disservice to that guy. But at the end of the day, who cares? Sure. But yeah, because you're breaking up the timelines this way and you're structuring it this way, you're going to have him at the very beginning and you're going to have him at the very end, and you're going to forget about him 100% during the middle.
That's a good point.
And I did. I 100% did. I forgot about that guy completely until he showed up at the end of the movie. And in the normal linear way, I don't think it would come across that way. It probably feels more natural. It probably feels less hollow.
Yeah,
but I don't want to I would sacrifice him and his character growth and depth for this structure of the movie, because the structure is so cool.
Absolutely. I will also say the scene where Laura Dern is talking about how she was ashamed of her country and she's speaking to a black woman who's like, oh, you stop being ashamed, kind of felt like, oh, like we're going to bring some modern perspective into this right now. Especially when it came to the issue of race, since that's the only time it comes up. It's like, dude, this is like a really huge topic, and if we're going here,
go there. But they didn't really.
Yeah.
It was like, hey, we thought about you type of thing.
When we reviewed Zombieland Double Tap, I was talking about like half-ass quarter cheek. Like this was like 20th cheek on the subject of race, and it's like, if this is how you touch on it, you shouldn't have touched on it at all.
Yeah.
Like, oh, we're acknowledging that Little Women is white as fuck.
Yeah.
And hey, we want to let you know that, like, we're aware that like race was an issue back then. And
it's like we know.
Inherent.
It's set during the Civil War.
Yes.
Yeah, we know race was an issue.
Yes.
It goes without saying.
Yeah, so it's one of those things where it's like that scene doesn't really land. But again, I'm talking about like one line. And the last nitpick I can really vault on this, it definitely does not escape the trope of writer having a hard time writing something, and then writer goes through traumatic experience, writer gets bolt of inspiration, and then we have montage where writer writes masterpiece that will be adored for generations to come. Mm-hmm. Does not escape that at all. And with the inventiveness that's within the rest of the film, I wish we got something a little bit more creative than Joe is writing now, and now she needs a second candle. Look, now she has a lot of papers. It's like we've seen this whole
Sure.
And with the inventiveness that's taken with the structure, it was kind of a bummer to see that that's all that kind of came from the "and she wrote Little Women" sequence. Sure. Now, bear in mind, I like the visual angle, because it's like we start with one candle and she burns a second one, and then like as the story progresses, you see more and more candles fill the frame. So it's like kind of like a visual representation of her inspiration,
illuminating.
Yes. But at the same time, I'm like, it doesn't really change the fact that what the candles are lighting is kind of just like, it doesn't really escape the trope. When the rest of the movie, I think, does so much to shake up the idea of a literary adaptation. We're going to change like the structure. We'll talk about the ending. Whereas, like, that scene in particular, it's like, oh, this just kind of feels like we're yada-yada-ing so that way Joe can get the novel.
Sure. I don't think that's a trope that I'm as familiar with, so that's not something that really bothered me at all. Like, I thought her inspiration for breaking her story felt natural and exciting to me. But I can, now that you're talking about it, I can see how that's probably a pretty common way that creatives, characters in movies go about, like, finding their inspiration type stuff. It didn't bother me at all.
And bear in mind, like, I'm not TPing Little Women's House. Like, I'm not bringing this up to be like, and therefore, fuck this movie. It's, oh, these are just, like, a couple of things if we're getting into nitpicks where I'm like, that didn't really work for me.
Exactly, totally. I'm glad you brought up Chris Cooper and how fun this movie is, because I wanted to bring up one aspect of the film. And speaking someone who wasn't familiar with the story at all, I saw it with Jenny, also not familiar with the story at all. Sure. You, not familiar with the story at all. So I'd be very interested if you got this vibe at all. But there was certain aspects in the movie where I felt Jenny squirming next to me in her seat. Hang on. And I also was in a mindset of being uncomfortable the same moment that Jenny was squirming. And I'm like, she must be picking up on the same thing I'm picking up on. And then after the movie, we talked and we're like, we loved that, oh my God. But then I was like, there was one thing though I wanted to ask you about. There was a moment, and it's with the character Chris Cooper.
Or was it after the piano?
It's in general.
Okay.
It's just the piano stuff in general.
Yeah.
And I asked Jenny, did you have an issue with the piano stuff? She's like, oh, I thought that was gonna go in a very different way. And I finished it for her, and I'm like, did you think he was, like, literally being a predator on her?
That's
like
fair.
This young impressionistic girl who wants to play piano, and literally the only lines Chris Cooper has up to this point is just like, I have a piano. hey, oh, she likes to play piano? Does she know I have a piano she can play at any time, any day or night?
I'll just sit on the stairs and listen.
Well, and that's the thing, we don't even get to that part yet. So at the moment, it just feels like he's trying to lure her to his house to play his piano.
Sure.
And it just felt weird. And I think part of it is the way Beth acted it too. Every time going to his house is brought up, she looks frightened and scared. And I think they were trying to go for, she's just shy and she's just like, she's supposed to be overwhelmed by the generosity here. But it looked like she's afraid of this guy for some reason.
Sure.
And then later, when she actually comes in, it's shot in a way where he sees her coming a mile away, coming across the lawn, and he is like Mr. Burns, like holding his hands together, excellent, Simpsons wise. She comes in and you can see him slowly coming down the stairs as she goes slowly to the piano. And it's just Jenny, that's when Jenny was squirming, and I was holding my hands to my head like something very, very sinister is about to happen here. And we didn't know the story, so we don't know. Like we're like, is this about to take a very, very depressing and horrifying turn?
Yeah.
And it doesn't. He sits on the steps and he's just very lovingly listening to the beautiful music.
Yeah.
And then it becomes clear that, oh, he had like a daughter who liked to play the piano. Yeah. And this is just, she reminds him of his daughter. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I got it now. But I'm just saying, if me and Jenny were both kind of on the same wavelength, not having heard the story before, that this is maybe not being like directed as effectively as it could have been.
That's fair.
I think that was like maybe the biggest miss, I think, in terms of what it was trying to do.
For what it's worth, I do. Yeah, because like once you get the full context for his character,
it's beautiful.
Like,
it's beautiful.
This is great. But yes, I will say, yeah, I mean, like the scene where he's just like listening on the staircase or whatever, Like, because I'm a movie dork, so I'm just like, oh, this kind of reminds me of a scene from Fanny and Alexander. Like, I'm kind of like rattling through a bunch of like film references.
Yeah.
The moment where I kind of got uncomfortable is when he gifts Beth the piano, and Beth immediately is like, what the fuck? And she runs to the house.
She looked upset.
Yes.
And that's when I was like, I thought we were past this, Greta Gerwig.
Gets to Chris Cooper and is like, I can't accept this.
Yeah.
And Chris Cooper is like, no, like I should have given this to you a long time ago.
Yeah.
And I hope you enjoy it. But like the amount of pauses in that scene.
It's the look on her face.
Yeah.
She looks so angry and just like mortified.
Yes.
And I don't want to blame Greta Gerwig. Maybe it's the actress. I didn't like the way she portrayed these Chris Cooper scenes or these piano scenes. I think she looked horrified when she should have looked happily overwhelmed. And I don't think it came across right, because it just felt like there was something sinister happening underneath the surface.
Sure.
That she is like mortified now that she has this reminder in the house of something sinister that happened. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
man.
It sucks because at the end of the movie, it's like, oh, I can look at this now with rose, like you said, rose-tinted goggles.
That's a really interesting read, though. Like,
I'm interested that you didn't get that.
There were points where I was like, this kind of feels uncomfortable. But then it turns out.
But if you're feeling uncomfortable about it, then it's not coming across as correct then.
Yeah.
Because it's clearly, everyone knows this story, right? Or not us. We clearly did.
We have established no idea.
She knew, I think Greta Gerwig knew, the majority of the people coming to see this movie are going to be Little Women fans. So they're gonna, like, oh, they know the story.
Yeah,
so
they have context.
Yeah, they have context for it. So it was just so strange to me that two people sitting next to each other that don't know the story got the exact same implication where we thought the movie was about to go.
Yeah.
And we were so relieved it didn't.
Sure.
And because then we were able to say definitively at the end, we loved this. Should we talk about the end? Let's talk about it.
Yes.
So, in general, I will say this and then we'll expand on it. I don't know how I feel about the ending, because I don't know how I feel yet about, because it's a relatively new thing, about movies that are not meta and then all of a sudden choose to be meta for one or two moments.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with it. The first time I've experienced it was The Dead Don't Die. And I talked to you about that, how I don't know how I feel about those moments.
Oh, yeah, no, it's genuinely jarring.
It's very jarring, and it works so much better in this movie. It does.
One could say it was jarmouche.
No one would say that. Shut the hell up.
No,
I would. That's good. I'll give you that. So it works so much better in this movie. I will say that. But there is a level of just being like, we were taking this whole movie at face value as, oh, this is the story. This is happening. And then this happened, and then this happened, and this happened. And then you get to the end, and then it's just like, what happened then? I'm used to being like, what I'm seeing, that's what happened, because that's the movie. But now I'm seeing things that are now being brought into question. So do you want to explain it?
Yeah, what's the divide? So it turns out, so we see Jo get hit with this burst of inspiration. She writes Little Women. She takes it to that publisher who begrudgingly took her story in the beginning, gives him Little Women, and he's like, bruh, not for me. And then he takes it home, and all of a sudden his daughters get a hold of it, and they read it, and they're like, Dad, we want to know what happens next to the Little Women.
Which I loved that.
That was great.
I loved the daughters moment.
Apparently in the source, in like the novel, the guy just reads it and is like, what? This is amazing.
Oh,
and
it's so much better in this movie.
This feels way more organic.
Oh.
And so he gets Jo back in and is like, all right, man, here's the deal. For whatever reason, my kids love it.
They're idiots, though, but maybe all the readers are idiots.
So we'll take this. That said, there needs to be some sort of romance in here. Like,
well, there needs to be a wedding.
yeah,
there needs to be a marriage.
Yeah, she cannot be alone by the end of it. And Joe begrudgingly is like, fine. And that's when that professor... At that point, the professor's already come back, in quotes.
Yeah, and she's enamored to see him.
Yeah.
In the context of the story, before we even get to meta stuff, she is giddy as hell to see him.
And then once we introduce that she needs to marry him, that's when we get kind of like the romantic comedy ending, where it's like she...
Rushes to the train station.
Rushes to the train station.
Her sisters are like, "Oh my god, this is going to be so sweet."
They kiss under an umbrella, and what is typically presented as like a saccharine ending comes forth. And I thought it was such a cool touch. It was more or less Greta Gerwig recognizing Joe has been fiercely independent the entire time, and you're telling me this professor who is like kind of a dick when he was like, hey, you clearly haven't read the works of Shakespeare, so I'm giving these to you so you can study character.
Yeah.
That guy is who Joe suddenly winds up with, and I feel like that was Greta Gerwig's way of kind of like, well, here's why. Like, I'm going to give, like, in this movie, in quotes, an in-canon explanation for this. So it's like, you get to have your cake and eat it too. Like, you get to see the sweet kiss in the rain and kind of like the romantic ending to this story, while at the same time acknowledging that it really isn't that true to the character.
But I don't care about seeing it if it's not actually happening. That's my hang up. Like, I don't need to, like, be handheld. Like, here, you get to have the romance too, but really it didn't happen. I'm like, no, tell your story. Either she gets married or she doesn't get married. I don't think I liked the meta-ness of just like, fine, I'll change the ending so that she gets married, but now we're gonna show you her like meeting up with him and rushing to the train station. Well, I'm like, so did she do that or didn't she?
I don't think she did, because then after the book gets published, we see her with her family right at the very end, and Professor Guy isn't there. So
no, he's 100% there.
Is he?
Yes, he's a teacher at the house.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, he's standing next to Lori and Emma Watson's husband.
Oh, okay.
Sorry. That's why it is a little confusing, I think.
It's been a while since I've seen it, James.
Okay, that's fair. You do see things quicker than I do. I just saw this, so.
Yeah, it's one of those things where, no, I'm not taking that as fact. And I think, but kind of the point, though, man, of it's like, oh, no, we'll tell your story. I think the entire point of that, in quotes, meta aspect is she doesn't have the freedom to do that. It's like in order for this to happen, she has to add this in.
And I get that. But the fact that we're seeing it, are you saying, like, everything we've seen in this movie has been real life, except for that part, and that's the only part of the movie that's like, oh, that actually didn't happen, though. Because we told you that she's about to change the ending of her book, so we're going to show you that. Even though we didn't show you her book, we showed you real life. Do you know what I mean? How confusing it can kind of be?
I can understand how it can be confusing.
Because I'm a very literal person, Kevin, and I like to break things down that way.
Well, the way that I'm interpreting it is everything you are seeing is in the story. And everything you are seeing...
Except her with the publisher?
Yes.
So everything is in the story except her with the publisher.
I would say so, yeah.
Okay, I guess that's the only thing that, like, on a literal level makes sense to me. If you explained it that way.
Yeah.
Like, there's two scenes in this movie that happen in real life. At the very beginning when she goes and talks to the publisher, and at the very end when she talks to the publisher. Yeah, and the book getting made.
I think those are just the things that, in quotes, aren't in the book, if that makes sense. I feel like everything...
she doesn't, like, sell her stories to a publisher in the book, maybe? Well, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe not. Maybe not.
You're really getting us in the weeds here, man. The way that I interpreted the end was like, oh, what I've been watching. I'm watching the story of Little Women. So it's like I'm seeing the book, and this is heavily based for Jo, her own experiences in her life.
Yeah.
But now I am also seeing, like, we're taking, like, a couple steps back, too, and kind of seeing, here's the process in which this gets made.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, I can understand how you can get bogged down in the weeds of, like, what is real
and what is the story.
I was basically just kind of along for the ride with the movie. That might be something that would be interesting on a second watch to see, oh, this kind of seems out of place within context of the rest of the movie.
And I'm never saying anything that you're saying isn't in character. Like, that's not what I'm saying. Obviously, I get that aspect of it. But in terms of just, like, the literal, you get it. I don't need to overly explain it to you.
Yeah.
But I still don't know how I feel about it. I'm not even saying I dislike it. I'm just saying I came out of that ending being like, I don't know how I feel about that ending. It's clearly meta, but then the rest of the movie wasn't meta. And all of a sudden it's just like, hey, here's a meta ending that might reframe the rest of how you thought of this movie. Maybe. It was odd. It was different. It was very unique. And I'm excited to watch it again to get another read on it. But yeah, I mean, to your benefit, the doctor romance at the end, it could kind of feel out of left field.
But and that's the thing is, like, now knowing, because yeah, for me it's like, well, I don't necessarily buy that, like, this dude would, like, catch that many feelings where he would then, like, travel to her house and then she would chase after him. But, like, once you add that aspect of, well, that's really not how it went down. Oh, okay, that makes sense. That's why this feels so shoehorned in. That's why this character isn't really given that much depth. He's more so, in the beginning, there to sort of establish where Jo's at as a writer. She's not writing things that are true to her. This critic does have, like, kind of a point. He's not really expressing it in the most tactful way possible. And you see how she reacts to that and how hurt she is. And that's really what that person represented within her life. Now they're together? What the fuck? Oh, it's fake. Like, yeah. I felt like that did kind of, like, smooth over that issue for me.
Yeah, I think the romance of her and the doctors, it can feel a bit out of left field. But I also felt like Laurie's love for Amy felt a very out of left field in the context of how this movie was presented, in the structure of it. Like, when he was just in France all of a sudden, and he's just like, oh, you're the love of my life now, not Jo anymore. It's just like, it, especially when we were still getting those flashbacks of him professing his love for Jo.
Well, I'm not sure.
It just was so interesting.
I'm not sure how, like, timeline-wise, how far down the line Jo saying, no, we're not going to be together. I know it hurts you now, but I think in the long run, this is for the best. To that moment where he's in France and he's kind of lost. But I think he sees Amy and sees her painting and kind of sees who she is. And they're kind of working each other out of their ruts because, like, Amy's planning on just giving up painting and not pursuing her passion. Mm-hmm. Laurie is just completely fucking rudderless. And I think that's where that love kind of grows. I think it grows significantly faster than Laurie's love for Jo. I didn't really need it super expanded upon.
I don't need it expanded upon. I was just stating it's fast, and it also like I don't buy it because he clearly is like infatuated with Jo, with the idea of Jo, and I don't think that even goes away after he arrives to America and is like, oh, by the way, me and Amy are married. Like, he still has like this sort of like infatuation with Jo even then. I think
you ended up covering it though, man. The idea of Jo. Yeah. That's what he loved. And I think...
No, I know, but I don't see... But that doesn't mean the love for Amy is true. I still don't see a love for Amy really that much. Or the scenes of him being in love with Amy are real rushed and, like, sparse, I thought.
They're definitely rushed. But I think there's a decent amount there in terms of them kind of seeing each other and, like, kind of seeing, like, their wounds, you know what I mean? Because, like, with Laurie and Jo... It's all pretty, like, surface level. Here are the fun times. Here's all of us dancing and all this other sort of stuff. when it comes to Amy and Laurie in France, it is all their, like, just the ugliest sides of themselves. And we can quibble about, like, this ugly side being more empathetic than this other ugly side or not. But it's like you kind of see these characters at sort of a tipping point with each other. And I think it is like a madcap rush. Also because it's like they kind of have to anchor onto each other in order to kind of keep themselves sane, too. But I do think Laurie is 100% genuine when he goes back with Amy, and Joe is like, I do love you, though. And Laurie's like, Laurie that time is the one to say, no, Joe, you were 100% right. Like, had we been together, we would have been miserable. Like, I know this is hard. Like, there's always going to be some part of me that loves you, but what I feel for Amy is true.
But
I think all of that is genuine.
Yeah, it's genuine, but I don't see how what he feels for Amy is true. That's all I'm saying, is that I never got the sense from the scenes or the acting that what he feels for Amy is just this true passion and love, and like I just never got that. Their scenes were all just bickering. There was a couple moments of just like him pondering, like, oh, maybe she shouldn't marry that guy because I think I love her, but I think maybe like
sure.
And then even when she dumps that guy, the audience is supposed to have this dread of like, oh, Laurie left though.
Yep.
Like clearly, because that's how the scenes are shot. Mm-hmm. The scenes are not shot for us to be understanding that Laurie is falling for Amy. They're not shot that way. So when it all of a sudden is like, oh, we're going back and we're mourning for Beth. Mm-hmm. And, oh, I dumped so-and-so, by the way. And he's just like, oh, okay. and then we show up in America and they're married. And it's like, okay, I guess what a sweeping romance that was.
And it's hard, too, because, like, ultimately, for the most part, the story is told through Joe's perspective.
Yeah,
and,
and again, maybe it's the intercutting of different timelines and not being linear that makes it feel cut up.
Not as cohesive.
Yeah. And maybe if you did a linear version of this, I would buy the Amy and Laurie stuff a little bit more.
Yeah. It wasn't something that took me out of the movie, but, like, I think you make some solid points.
It doesn't take me out of the movie. It was more of a, like, defense for if people say, like, well, Joe and the doctor seems out of left field. And I'm like, well, so does Laurie and Amy. It feels very out of left field also. Maybe none of them should have married anyone.
Well, who knows what's real or what's not?
Who knows what's
Maybe
real?
Beth's alive somewhere and we're all just forgetting her.
Maybe none of the sisters exist. Joe is an only child. And she's selling a story for what she wished she had to this publisher.
Could be.
You never know.
Maybe these women were tall all along. All right, so
because they were little. Because it's little. It's little women.
All right. Well,
because little is it could be a thing for short, but tall could be big. I gotcha.
Could be big woman. Yeah.
Oh my God, Kevin, stop dragging this on. Let's end this episode. I'm sorry.
All right, so we're gonna rate this now. Our rating scale for our trailer in the rear view is should see again. Glad I saw it. Should have waited or shouldn't have seen it.
Correct.
James, where are you at right
now? I am at a glad I saw it. Very solidly. And I will see this again, but I'm not going to rush out to the theater to see it again.
Yeah.
Like that is reserved for the Star Wars of my life. You know what I mean? You know what I mean. I'm so happy I saw this movie, and I was so happy with it.
Well, so I know we do, like, tiers sometimes. I'm at a very high glad I saw it.
Yeah,
like,
I'm a super high glad I saw it as well. Yeah,
definitely. I will also say, if you're drafting fantasy moms, you would be a fool to pick anyone other than Laura Dern in this movie. She's the best mom.
She admits that she's not perfect, but then she shows you she's perfect anyway.
It's just amazing.
Just endless bottomless patience for these 4 little women that are driving her up a wall.
Definitely. Glad I saw it.
Yeah.
And would definitely recommend. And did you just get back from seeing Little Women? What did you think of it?
Tell us.
You can tell us through our email. If you want to reach out to us, hit us up at trailerhitchmailbox@gmail.com. Otherwise, you are welcome to hit us up on Facebook. Just search Trailer Hitch Podcast on Facebook. You can find us there. Shoot us a little message. Otherwise, You can tweet at us too, at TrailerHitchPod. Otherwise, you can hit us up via Instagram at TrailerHitchPodcast. Or you can leave a comment on YouTube. And hey, while you're on YouTube, go ahead, subscribe to us. You can get all of our content through there. Otherwise, you can do that through Stitcher. You can do that through Apple Podcasts. Be sure to rate and subscribe to all of those things. Like us, rate us, whatever they allow you to do on those platforms, because it helps us find more listeners who may also have opinions on Little Women, which may or may not be right on the show if we receive them with that person's permission, of course.
That's right.
Before we go, we'd like to thank Danny Schmitz from Lost in a Name for the amazing intro song that you hear at the top of every episode. We would like to thank Rachel Ashley for the beautiful cover art that you see on our various social medias and all of our various streaming platforms. You can find her work at Mighty Creations on Instagram. We would also like to thank Jenny Hawks, our bad movie and social media correspondent, for her sterling work week in and week out. And we would like to thank Casey Clowers for the amazing outro song, which you will hear momentarily. And James is just nodding at me. It's pretty late by us. I feel like he doesn't have anything to add. So
I'm sorry, I've been asleep for the last 5 minutes. What's up?
Then how do you know who's going to write in? How do you know how to write into us, James? I'm quizzing you right now. Name 2 methods in which you can reach out to us.
Courier pigeon.
Now we need to get a courier pigeon service. That sounds fucking rad.
Trailer Hitch.
Yeah, so it turns out we see Greta Gerwig get hit with this burst of inspiration, and she writes the
Greta
story.
Gerwig? You mean Joe?
Da-da-da, it's almost 2 a.m. 2 in the morning? What difference does that make?
We got this.